The Kriss Vector has always been the best gun for quite some time, but with the recent nerfs, the tables may have turned. In this video, I'll put both guns through 5 tests and give you my opinions on them. First, let's talk about the Kriss Vector. The Kriss Vector, more commonly known as just the Vector, is an SMG that deals low damage with a super high fire rate. It's the fastest in the game, tied only with the Scorpion Evo, and if you count sidearms, the Glock 18. It does a base damage of 22 per hit, with a fire rate of 1200 RPM or rounds per minute. Its reload time is about 3.5 seconds, and notably, its recoil, fire rate, and reload all beat that of the P90. Now let's talk about the P90. The P90 is a PDW that has medium damage and high fire rate. It does 28 damage with a fire rate of 900 RPM. It has higher damage than the Vector, and also has a larger magazine. The biggest difference between the two, however, is the headshot multiplier, where the Vector only gets a 1.2 times multiplier, and the P90 has a 1.5 times multiplier. This allows the P90 to 3-shot headshot, which is a huge deal. On to the first test. For test number 1, we have the general statistics test. I'll go through the base stats of each gun, and tell you which guns are better in different areas. The Kriss Vector wins on horizontal recoil, velocity, fire rate, muzzle flash, control, running speed, and reload. The P90 wins on damage, L-armor or light armor damage, vertical recoil, accuracy, aim down time, and a new one for this test, headshot multiplier. I'm only going to put this on this test if there's a difference, which usually there's not because guns are compared within sections. This means that the Vector wins 7 sections, and I'm recording my script, by the way. You want to hear it? I've been saying it. You like it? Isn't it professional? The Vector wins 7 sections and the P90 wins 6. Because the test is based on who wins more sections and not the margin that they win them by, it means that the Kriss Vector wins this test, putting the score at 1-0. For test number 2, we have the ammo and reload test. The Vector comes with 36 rounds, which is 14 less than the P90's 50. Alternatively, the Vector comes with a reload that is 0.4 seconds faster than the P90. As of now, the large increase in magazine size means the P90 is winning, but each gun has a trick up their sleeves. They each come with a quick A magazine variant, which drops the Vector's reload to 2.8 seconds and the P90's reload to 3, closing that margin from 0.4 to 0.2. It impacts their other stats in roughly the same waves, with vertical and horizontal recoil being adjusted by slightly different amounts. Still, the P90 is winning, but the Vector has one last chance with its Drum A magazine. This increases its ammo count to 60, although it will bomb some of your other statistics. Personally, I do usually use the Drum mag, and although the Vector tried to make a comeback, it just lost to the P90, tying the score at 1-1. For test number 3, we have the TTK and DPS test. This test will measure how fast it can kill someone, assuming 100 damage per person, all body shots, and no armor. The Vector does 22 damage with a fire rate of 1200 RPM. This gives it a DPS of 440. The P90 does 28 damage with a fire rate of 800 RPM, giving it a DPS of 373. Keep in mind that the P90 wins headshot DPS by about 30. For TTK, it will be calculated by how fast the Vector can fire 5 shots and how fast the P90 can fire 4. That's how much it'll take to kill someone with 100 HP. This gives the Vector a TTK of 0.25 and the P90 a TTK of 0.3, which is 1/20th of a second slower. However, the TTK for the P90 is less than the Vector base, assuming you get all headshots with the P90. And even so, it is safe to say that the Vector wins this test, but really only if the target has no armor. Because with medium armor, the P90 has a headshot TTK of 0.23, and the Vector has a headshot of 0.25, which means that now the P90 actually wins. So if you're using headshots, the P90 wins, and for body shots, the Vector wins. But because body shots are much more likely than headshots, the Vector wins this test, putting the score at 2-1. For test number 4, we have the crowd control test. This test will measure how long a gun can hold off enemies, and how well it will do against them. The Vector has 36 bullets, and paired with a fire rate of 1200 RPM, it gives the Vector consistent firing time of 1.8 seconds per magazine. The P90 has 50 bullets with a fire rate of 800 RPM, giving it a firing time of 3.75 seconds. No question as to who wins that, as the P90 more than doubles that of the Vector. Even with Drum A magazines, the Vector has a firing time of 3 seconds, which the P90 still beats. And this means that the P90 is better for chaining kills and dealing with large groups of enemies, which means that the P90 wins another test, putting the score at 2-2. For test number 5, we have the user friendliness test. The Vector is unlocked at rank 70 and has low recoil. P90 is unlocked at rank 125 and has also pretty low recoil. Now keep in mind that ranking up now is much easier after that huge wave of changes and the big update, and it's a lot easier to get to those high levels in a quicker amount of time. Now, unlike the majority of these tests, there's something else to consider. The Vector has a terrible damage drop-off starting at 11 meters compared to the P90, which starts at 50. And the Vector's drop-off is also a lot steeper on the curve than the P90's, meaning that you lose less damage over a longer time on the P90. And the increased magazine size also helps for beginners. So which gun wins this test for the tiebreaker? Honestly, I'm not sure. I really enjoy both guns, but I'm starting to actually use the P90 more. And as a side note, the P90 can't use any underbarrel grips, which is annoying. But for this comparison, I'm going to say it's a tie. Now I know that's no fun, but that's just the truth. Hopefully you enjoyed and learned something new. Please consider subscribing and liking, as it really does help me. If you have any suggestions or ideas, feel free to tell me. See ya!